America is broken, and it's up to you to put it back together again. It's a tall order. A lot of people believe in it, but you're not sure you do. It'll take a lot of lonely, dangerous walks and exceptionally heavy lifting, and it's not really clear what America means in the first place. For some reason, you set out anyway, trudging through wetlands and rocky hills on foot, not fully knowing or understanding where you're going. Other than the monsters you can't quite see, there's not really anyone else around most of the time. Just you and your thoughts, one foot in front of the other. On one level, Death Stranding is about America. But your actual goal in setting out across the country is to help people, bring them together, and forge connections, not for the vague concept of America, but for the sake of helping people. Death Stranding is unrelenting in its earnestness and optimism. Certainly not without its critiques of America, nor without its challenges and setbacks, but inherently hopeful nonetheless. It is a dense, complex, slow game with a plot that really goes places, but at its core, it never stops being about the sheer power and purpose we can find in human connection. And that is its most remarkable achievement.
Anyways, I do like this game. I mostly love it, in fact. I think some of you guys might give me shit for that, but really, I'm also not gonna pull the wool over your eyes and sell you on something that you just may not like.
What the hell is this game? I mean, I love it and I hate it. It is fucking weird. What are you doing? Go away, BB. Seriously, I'm trying to do a review now. Kojima has this knack for creating these insane visions of horror and sci-fi and post-apocalyptic. It's really actually quite awesome.
The thing that I don't really like at all, straight up, are combat encounters. They're admittedly a smaller part of the game, but they're there, and I kinda hate them, and I try to avoid them. There are camps of bandits called mules that are keen on tracking you and stealing your packages. Combat is clunky with like a 3-combo punch, kind of a tackle, an extremely limited dodge, and frankly, it just isn't fun. It actually gets a little better, but it starts off really bad. Enemies are relentless, but in an annoying way, and too many of them seemingly instantly spawn out of nowhere. Now, you can sneak around in a limited way, hide in grass. There are eventual weapons, non-lethal, and, eventually just straight up guns like 20 hours in, but even those I found less satisfying. Now, as you go from people just trying to steal your packages to eventually legit terrorists with cool guns just trying to kill you straight up, it didn't really ever get more fun at any point, especially because the shooting doesn't feel that great. It clearly wasn't really the main focus.
The combat is mechanically simple. You mostly have to move around a bit and hit them before they hit you, but the sequences are visually and aurally arresting. You don't get a gun that works on live enemies until 25 or so hours in, but even then, it's non-lethal. You are actively guided away from killing in Death Stranding because when people die, their bodies basically go nuclear and level cities, leaving nothing but craters and BTs in their wake.
There are a lot of systems and subsystems that complicate it all, but for the sake of this video, I don't think it's worth time describing all of them. But one of the big ones, my favorite one, is the connected world stuff. It's a clever integration that might seem like a gimmick I would usually really hate as a single-player gamer, but I really liked it here. So when you venture out in the world, you essentially craft stuff to help your journey. At first it's like mountain climbing ropes, long ladders for hills or crossing rivers. Then eventually it's bridges, shelters from storms, a good home base, and equipment blockers smack in the middle of nowhere, and just a lot more. But leaving these things behind also helps other players in the world as well. They'll see them. You don't need a PlayStation Online subscription to access these features. Your console and game just need to be connected to the internet. I am very surprised but happy to say that I've had so much fun stumbling upon helpful stuff that other players have left behind to help me get somewhere. Sometimes they put spam bullshit in places, but ultimately, most of the time, it works out great. Sometimes it's a helpful sign suggesting that there's danger ahead. Sometimes it's a bunch of supplies in a locker. Sometimes it's a perfectly placed ladder, maybe a vehicle left behind. But it's also made me actually give a shit about also leaving stuff behind for others and helping upkeep stuff that's already been built by all of us. A major thing for me was the roads. There are like these road systems that kind of predetermined, but you can craft and revive them. But it's really hard to do on your own. Over time, other players will dump resources into them as well and, build it up. It's been my main building focus because the end result is kind of like a superhighway system across stretches of land that makes traveling back and forth and backtracking and stuff so much easier. It makes all the difference.
I found myself pouring through every collectible, every interview, every little info note that I could get my hands on, which is something that I won't normally do for crap games. And that first moment of trying to sneak by these BT creatures was so intense.
You know, the combat isn't very satisfying, and the main core, the package delivery stuff, you're either gonna be hooked or you're gonna hate it. So what else is there? Well, there's a story, of course. It's a Hideo Kojima game, so expect long stretches of not playing and listening to overly complicated exposition. Now, it's not as insane as Metal Gear Solid 4. There's a lot of gameplay here, a lot. But the story is something I can't go into much without spoiling things. There are some really exciting, surprising, and wild sequences that I enjoyed. I also think the actress Margaret Qualley's moments, as well as Mads Mikkelsen's, are some of the best. But unfortunately, I couldn't really get into Norman Reedus' character, Sam. He looks really freaking cool, I'll give you that, but I didn't buy him as a protagonist. He also doesn't say too much. Maybe it's the way his lines were written, I don't know.
Connecting with this story, just as with connecting with NPCs and other players, can take work. It's not a story that immediately clicks on a surface level, and the dramatic mystery and off-the-wall science don't make too much sense at first blush. But it's an emotional story first and foremost.
It made me feel something, as did the story. That's the kind of thing that I can recommend when a game does that. But I just can't. I can't recommend the game itself, at least not to everyone, my entire audience. You have to be willing to, forgive some parts. You have to be in this slow burn sci-fi story. You have to be willing to role play a little bit. If you aren't, if you don't like large, involving stories that unfold slowly, if you don't like planning routes and then executing them, and you just want some quick action or horror payoff, then don't bother, okay? All the criticisms are true. It is basically a walking simulator. And here we go.
Is in some ways a high-end, super expensive AAA walking simulator. I don't mean that in a reductive way though. As Sam, you just do a lot of hoofing it on foot. There are vehicles and they look and sound cool and have a really great sense of speed if you have a nice stretch of land, but a lot of the terrain is harsh and unforgiving, not meant for vehicles, and the vehicle controls themselves just aren't really very good at all. So you're gonna be doing stuff the old-fashioned way. And for me, the fun is in the walking and carrying management. You have to worry about where Sam steps, how steep of an incline you're coming at, how much stamina you have left, whether or not your boots are getting worn out, and also delicately balancing all of the packages on your back, almost in a cartoonish way if you stack them up so high. Use the triggers to shift your weight to one side or the other, or just brace yourself for a steep incline or decline. Now, you can fall, totally eat shit, damage or lose your packages, hurt yourself, and ultimately get penalized in a variety of different ways.
It's an incredibly lonely stretch of time during which you mostly just walk. The work you do early on is especially laborious in the absence of advanced gear, and it serves to give you an appreciation for other players and better gear as you move forward. In short, you give a lot and get a lot in return. There is a relatively small number of mandatory deliveries to advance the story, but there's a seemingly unlimited number of optional deliveries, and I often found myself picking up orders destined for any place that was on my way. It's a cycle that's easy to get swept up in. No matter how difficult a delivery or how far the distance, you will at least be met with gratitude, likely feel fulfilled from having completed a tough delivery, and often given a tool to make future deliveries a bit easier. Most importantly though, increasing your bonds with people is how you get them on the network. And the network is what elevates this core loop beyond the simple satisfaction of completing tasks and getting rewards.
The only thing though that I think is missing is maybe, I don't know, some meaningful branching choices, because in some parts of the game, you're presented with a choice. It gives this illusion that you have a choice, but you don't actually really. The story is linear, and there are in fact no multiple endings, as it seems to imply. The ending isn't affected by factors like missing some of the orders for Sam, or ignoring your side orders, or not reaching the maximum connection levels with the different people. You can do all that and you'll still get the same ending. So this is tough. What do you do with a game that's like two different halves? The story's great, universe, characters, and the actual gameplay loop, not that fun. Do not want to replay this another 40 plus hours doing all those deliveries. Some of the dialogue's not that great. It's one of my hardest ratings. I'm gonna go ahead and have to issue this one a 7 out of 10. I think if you take the gameplay 8 out of 10, or no, 4 out of 10, and you take the world and 8 out of 10, you average it for a 6. I'm gonna bump it up to 7 because it's memorable, it sticks with me. I can see somebody being way lower, somebody being way higher. This is one of those that it's not everyone's cup of tea and you're gonna be exhausted by the end of it, for sure.